Welcome to the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse at Cape Hatteras National Seashore in Dare County, North Carolina. Today we celebrate the sesquicentennial, the 150th anniversary of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. This lighthouse may be the most iconic lighthouse in the world. It has been said that if you close your eyes and start thinking about a lighthouse, it's quite likely that a stunning image of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse will appear in your mind. This lighthouse, famous among photographers and visitors for its beauty, also symbolizes three important American values: dedication, community, and ingenuity. Standing just under 200 feet tall is a symbol of our nation's dedication to protect mariners from becoming part of the graveyard of the Atlantic. It's been called that due to the large number of ships that have been lost to the Diamond Shoals just off the coast, a large and treacherous area of shallow water and sandbars formed at the intersection of the Gulf Stream and Labrador currents. The lighthouse is also a symbol of community. From 1870 to 1935, 83 lighthouse keepers kept the beacon perched atop America's tallest brick lighthouse lit. Rain or shine, hot, humid summer day or hurricane, the lighthouse keepers were supported by their family and a community of Outer Banks friends and neighbors to keep the light shining. We celebrate our strong, hard-working, resourceful, and passionate community today as the 150th anniversary of the Hatteras Lighthouse is also the 150th anniversary of Dare County. Construction of the lighthouse in 1870 was an amazing engineering feat, and more recently, the National Park Service's commitment to preservation was evident just over 21 years ago as a team of scientists and engineers moved the lighthouse 2,900 feet in 23 days, effectively reestablishing the original 1,500-foot distance from the ocean in 1870, and protecting it from a rapidly eroding coastline so that it can be preserved for future generations. The planning and engineering required to move a 9.6 million pound brick lighthouse demonstrated the National Park Service's dedication and ingenuity in the preservation of America's history and most important treasures. Cape Hatteras National Seashore also has the pleasure of stewarding the Body Island Lighthouse, just north of Oregon Inlet. That lighthouse began operating in 1872. So today, I'll extend an early invitation to celebrate its sesquicentennial in 2 years. To our south, the Ocracoke Lighthouse, the oldest operating lighthouse in North Carolina, stands within Ocracoke Village. Built in 1823, we look forward to celebrating its 200th anniversary with everyone soon. It is also noteworthy that the 1859 Cape Lookout Lighthouse is also managed by the National Park Service and an important part of the history of eastern North Carolina. The seashore is extremely fortunate to be initiating a complete restoration for the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. The lighthouse will receive a new paint inside and out, will repair damaged brickwork, metalwork, floors, and the original lens structure. I look forward to welcoming you to the restored structure over the coming years. Thank you for joining us today as we celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Lighthouse and Dare County. I think you will enjoy the stories and history our partners will share with you about the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse.
Bob Woodard, Chairman, Dare County Board of Commissioners. On behalf of Dare County, I'd like to welcome you all to the virtual celebration of the 150th anniversary of the lighting of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. I'd like to begin by thanking those who have worked to organize this event that allows us to come together at the end of an extremely challenging year to remember our heritage and recognize an important moment in history. For Dare County and our Outer Banks, there is no greater symbol of our strength and perseverance than the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. So thank you to the National Park Service, the Outer Banks Lighthouse Society, and all of the other individuals who have made this event possible. 150 years ago today, on December the 16th, 1870, the historic Cape Hatteras Lighthouse that stands right behind me was lit for the very first time. More than 2,000 shipwrecks lie along the bottom of the ocean floor just off of our coastline, earning the region the name the Graveyard of the Atlantic. For centuries, shifting sandbars and constant shoaling along the barrier island have resulted in dangerous conditions. These hazardous conditions have often made it difficult for sailors to navigate their way along the shoreline without running aground and ultimately sinking to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. In an effort to protect these sailors and watermen and to provide a proper navigational aid, the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse was constructed. The beam of light that is emitted from this iconic structure, which, by the way, is the tallest lighthouse in the United States, can be seen for 20 nautical miles. The story of construction of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse and the development of Dare County have been intertwined since the beginning. In addition to being the year the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse was first lit, 1870 is also the year that marked the beginning of Dare County, whose 150th anniversary we celebrate in 2020. Although this has been a very unique and often challenging year due to the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects on our residents, businesses, and visitors, today we have the pleasure of celebrating the most iconic feature of the Outer Banks. The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse has become a symbol of the Outer Banks, and it is recognized by people across the nation and around the world. You'll even find it showcased in the center of our very own Dare County seal. And because it's a symbol of the Outer Banks, millions of people flock to Dare County to visit the lighthouse each year. Many of these people have been visiting the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse with their families and friends for generations. They create and cherish fond memories of events such as engagements, weddings, and other celebrations that take place at this historic site. A visit to the Outer Banks is truly not complete without a trip to this structure that has served our community for 150 years. From tropical storms and nor'easters to major hurricanes and global pandemics, our barrier islands have experienced a fair share of challenges since the first English settlers arrived on our shoreline in the 16th century. Yet the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse continues to stand tall. It continues to serve as a navigational aid that helps ships to safely navigate the treacherous waters of the Graveyard of the Atlantic. This serves not only as a testament to the strength and resiliency of the lighthouse itself, but also to the strength and resiliency of the people of this great county that we call home. A county that has remained steadfast in the face of adversity and withstood the many challenges it has faced over the years. Here in Dare County, we are incredibly proud to be the home of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. We are proud of the role that it has served our region over the past 150 years. And we are excited for the role that it will continue to play as an icon for Dare County and the Outer Banks of North Carolina for centuries to come. Thank you again for joining us for this virtual celebration. This is an exciting day for Dare County and the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, as well as for all those individuals across the country and around the world who recognize the importance of this iconic structure that has served as a beacon of our community for 150 years.
Hello folks, I'm Captain Matt Baer, the Commander of the United States Coast Guard Sector North Carolina. I want to thank you for watching this video tribute as the National Park Service and the United States Coast Guard commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. Not only is it one of the most recognizable lighthouses in the entire nation, but at nearly 199 feet tall, it is also the tallest brick lighthouse as well. Presently, the National Park Service maintains the structure itself, the keeper's quarters and other buildings, and all of the surrounding land. The United States Coast Guard maintains an automated light as an active federal aid to navigation to warn mariners of an offshore hazard area known as Diamond Shoals in the graveyard of the Atlantic. As technology continues to improve, the Coast Guard will eventually transition the optic to a more cost-effective LED technology. Throughout that process, we will work with the National Park Service to preserve the historical significance of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse so that the public may continue to enjoy it today and well into the future. I want to thank the National Park Service for your leadership, dedication, and partnership as you work to preserve the history of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse.
As we celebrate this monumental 150th anniversary of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about how we got here. It has long been known that the waters here off of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, are some of the most dangerous waters along the entire Atlantic coast, and some will argue in the entire world. It was quickly discovered that something was needed here that would assist mariners in safely navigating these treacherous waters. So in 1803, a lighthouse was first built not far from where I stand today. Unfortunately, there were a number of issues that arose with this first attempt at a lighthouse, some of which included not being tall enough, not being easily visible, and having an unreliable light. After a number of years of mariners complaining about the lighthouse at Cape Hatteras and attempts to improve the current light, the U.S. Lighthouse Service said enough is enough. They acknowledged that the dangerous waters off of Cape Hatteras not only deserve a reliable lighthouse, but a lighthouse that will stand above all the rest and be the example of what a lighthouse is meant to be. So the U.S. Lighthouse Service set out to do just that. And in 1868, construction began on a new lighthouse at Cape Hatteras. After a couple of years of construction, on December 16, 1870, the new Cape Hatteras Lighthouse was lit for the very first time. A lighthouse that stands at 198.5 feet tall, making it the tallest brick lighthouse in all of North America. It also now has its iconic black and white spiral day mark and a unique 7.5-second flash pattern for the light, and it still continues to serve today as an active aid to navigation for those traveling around Cape Hatteras. The U.S. Lighthouse Service had finally accomplished what it set out to do, and had created the lighthouse of all lighthouses. A lighthouse that has stood the test of time, one that has survived everything from hurricanes, nor'easters, and earthquakes, to wars, to even the ever-changing dynamic barrier island landscape that are these Outer Banks of North Carolina. As we continue to celebrate 150 years of this iconic lighthouse, you will be hearing stories from a number of guest speakers that all have something special to share. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for helping us in wishing a very happy 150th birthday to the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse.
And out of the darkness shines a brighter light. This is my legacy, my gift to humanity. My name is Augustin Franel, inventor of the lens that bears my name, and which changes lighthouse technology forever, illuminating the seas, saving lives, and creating new light in new venues yet to come. Hello everyone, this is Joseph Smith, performing artist of living history, and I am excited to join in the celebration and wishing Cape Hatteras Lighthouse a very happy 150th anniversary. It's been my honor and pleasure to perform as Augustine Frainel for several lighthouse organizations since December of 2016. Augustine Frainel was a French civil engineer and a scientist. He was born in 1788 and only lived till the age of 39. And it's quite remarkable to consider that this man could barely read by the age of 8 and deal with physical ailments throughout his life. And yet he was able to leave a legacy in the short amount of time that he was here. And that legacy is the Fresnel Lens, an invention that magnified the beam of light from a lighthouse so that even ships from 20 miles away could see it. There's no doubt that many lives were saved by his invention. Now, when Augustine Frainel was alive, he challenged the mainstream view that was held by many, including his professors, that light was made of particles. Now, through his research and experimentation, he came to the conclusion that light was made of waves, and with the help of his mentor and champion, Francois Arago, he proved this theory to his scientific peers. Now, when it comes to applying this technology to lighthouses, I think I'll let Monsieur Frainel explain. You see, at the time, lighthouse technology consisted of lamps and mirrors, or as they were known, reflectors. I immediately know what the problem is. Even if you had a perfect mirror, it loses half, 50% of its light through reflection. The light is being dispersed on the top and the bottom. My solution: use a lens instead of a mirror. Instead of losing half, you may only lose 20%. Now, of course, the lens cannot be too heavy or too thick, so I propose to construct it by steps, lentille à échelon, several concentric rings of glass with distinct prisms, top, bottom. The prisms bend the light into parallel lines, all the parallel lines coming together into a concentrated, solid, bright beam of light. And the rest, as they say, is history. Augustine Frainel's technology is still being used today, not just with lighthouses, but with theatrical lighting, with car headlights, traffic lights, cameras, solar energy. You get the idea. And I hope that just with this short amount of time and information, you've gotten to know Augustine a little bit better. And it's my hope and intention, even though I know that these are challenging times, it's my hope and intention to bring the Augustine Frainel performance down to the lighthouses of North Carolina when the time is right and when we can all enjoy it. And speaking of Monsieur Frainel, I believe I will have him take us to the end of this short video. For you see, there are those who believe that lighthouses, they're obsolete. I say never. For you see, lighthouses are still used as aids to navigation, not only during the night, but during the day as well. But like Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, they can also be seen as beacons. They can be seen as a beacon of strength. They can be seen as a beacon of hope. And they can be seen as a beacon of light. And so, my friends, be well, stay well, and remember, keep shining your light. Until we meet again, or for the very first time, au revoir, mon amis.
For a century and a half, Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, America's tallest brick sentinel, has watched over the dynamic place we call the Outer Banks of North Carolina, a place of unlikely historical paradoxes, a small area where great moments of American history have taken place. Since 1870, this magnificent lighthouse has endured catastrophic storms, witnessed unparalleled life-saving rescues, and stood as a stalwart sentry over deadly military conflicts. Twice world wars have stained these shores with oil and blood. In 1918, within reach of the lighthouse's guiding light about 14 miles to the southeast, the Diamond Shoals light vessel number 71 was sunk by gunfire from Imperial Germany's U-boat U-140. 24 years later, German U-boats returned, this time with a vengeance. In North Carolina waters alone, 93 ships were sunk or damaged, and more than 1,700 people were killed, including many civilians. Using the lighthouse to guide them, fearless German U-boat skippers stalked their prey with impunity. Cape Hatteras Lighthouse is in sight, our old acquaintance from our last patrol, Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hartigan of U-123 wrote in his war diary in March 1942. Scores of merchant sailors drowned or burned to death near Cape Hatteras. Visible from 75 miles away, towering columns of black smoke from burning oil served as the ill-fated victims' ephemeral headstones over their watery graves. Deadly shipwrecks and heroic rescues were simply an ordinary way of life around Cape Hatteras Lighthouse and its surrounding villages. In 1884, lifesavers bravely strapped on their cork life belts and put to sea in tumultuous surf, exceeding the worst conditions the islanders had ever seen, to rescue 9 victims from the foundering barkentine Ephraim Williams 5 miles east of Hallover Beach. No less courageous were the women of the islands. When the life-saving husbands launched their fragile wooden surfboats through thundering waves, they would establish a camp at the base of the lighthouse to await their loved one's fate. They knew that's where the lifesavers would return, if they returned. Children played together, and at night they slept in the base of the lighthouse. They thought it was fun, remembered the late Beatrice MacArthur of Buxton, although the mothers and spouses of the lifesavers offshore surely did not share in their children's good times. Like their beloved barber pole striped lighthouse, the inhabitants of Hatteras Island were steadfast, dependable, all-seeing, and caring. Most resolute were the lighthouse's long line of distinguished keepers. Those were the days when men were men. Augustus C. Thompson comes to mind, the principal keeper who, perched in the watchroom 180 feet above the ground atop the unreinforced masonry tower, rode out the 1886 Charleston earthquake that rocked Cape Hatteras Lighthouse backward and forward like a tree shaken by the wind. The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse's longest-serving and last principal keeper, Unaka Benjamin Jeanette, was a man seasoned by salt spray, unrelenting storms, and hard times. Not much could trouble Captain Naka, as he was fondly called, except for the rapidly encroaching Atlantic Ocean. When his great-grandfather Benjamin Fulcher had been keeper at Cape Hatteras in the late 1840s, the high tide line was more than 1/2 mile to the east. On the day in 1919 when Captain Naka became the principal keeper at the lighthouse, the ocean's waves were crashing just 300 feet from the base of the tower. In 1936, the government abandoned the seemingly doomed tower for the next 14 years until a transitory accretion of the beach encouraged the Coast Guard to reestablish the light at the top of the preeminent landmark. Happy days returned to the light station, and islanders will always remember the Pirates' Jamboree with its parade past the lighthouse featuring the nation's only mounted Boy Scout troop up from Ocracoke. As time passed, license plates from all 50 states would be seen on cars parked at the Cape Hatteras Light Station, and many tourists would time their arrival to occur at sunrise. Storms never abated, however, and always seemed to come during the calendar events. The Christmas storm of 1884, the Ash Wednesday storm, the Lincoln Day storm, and the Halloween nor'easter of 1992 that stirred even the ghosts of the graveyard of the Atlantic. In 1980, during a rare March blizzard and under the cloak of swirling snow and piles of foam from spindrift, the covetous ocean claimed the last vestiges of the 1803 Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. Through it all, the mighty Cape Hatteras Lighthouse held her ground, yet over time there was less ground to hold. After decades of concern, a commitment was made to save the lighthouse. With the stewardship and courage of the National Park Service, the genius of scientists and fearless structure movers, the unwavering support of the Outer Banks Lighthouse Society, and the good graces of the U.S. Congress and the American taxpayer, the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse got a new lease on life. In 1999, the nation's tallest unreinforced brick lighthouse was lifted vertically 5.3 feet onto steel rails and was relocated 2,900 feet to the southwest, placing the lighthouse at the same relative distance from the ocean as when it was first built. It was an historic achievement no less remarkable in its day than man's first powered flight. The project was fondly called the move of the century. This story would be incomplete without adding that one of the most remarkable moments in its history is the day in 1870 the lighthouse received the first order Henri Lepeau Fresnel lens that was originally installed in the tower's older sibling, the 1803 Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, prior to the Civil War. That lens, beautifully depicted in this National Geographic 1933 Clifton Adams photo being proudly polished by Unaka Jeanette, is arguably the most historically significant Fresnel lens in America. This writer was the first to discover and report Then in 1853, that same lens was seen by millions of people in the south nave of New York City's Crystal Palace during the landmark Exhibition of Industry of All Nations, our nation's first World's Fair. Removed from the lighthouse in 1861 by Unaka Jeanette's great-grandfather, Benjamin Fulcher, of all people, and hidden throughout the Civil War, the lens was recovered, returned to France for repairs, and installed in the lantern room of the new 1870 tower 150 years ago. Today, what remains of that lens atop its enormous 1870 cast iron pedestal and clockwork mechanism can be viewed at the Graveyard of the Atlantic Museum in Hatteras. And that, in a nutshell of sorts, is the story of America's lighthouse. Happy 150th birthday, Cape Hatteras Lighthouse.
The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse and its involvement and its status and its symbol for us here on Hatteras Island, the Hatteras Island community, is without parallel. It is our symbol here. I say that because there have been marriage proposals here. Dozens of local people have made life plans here together. If you bring in our tourism since World War II, that's going to equate to thousands of marriage proposals here. Young lovers made their plans for futures and families and even been married on these very grounds that we're standing. Also, the local people here on Hatteras Island, and to a greater extent, the people on the Outer Banks, Wanchese, Manteo. I say this in regard to local people have made up the Lighthouse Service and, of course, its sister bureaucracy, the Life Saving Service. These were the two most efficient bureaucracies that ever existed. There was great pride in being assistant keeper or a principal keeper here at the Cape Hatteras Lighthouses. The keepers' names are full of traditional Hatteras names: the Midgets, the Rollinsons, the Austins, the Farrows, the O'Neills, the Williams. But on an Outer Banks level, you have the Daniels, you have the Gallops, you have the Gaskells, you have the Etheridges. It's just fantastic that such a historic treasure as this was brought to fruition by local people. It's also, when we were kids, this was the place to go. This is where I learned to fish. This is where we learned to surf. This is where we went swimming. If you were a local person and you met a girl or a guy who was down here on vacation, where are you going to bring them? You're going to bring them to the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, because that's what we have. On a good, clear night when the stars are out in the tens of thousands and you have that 7-second sweep of the light going around, it's just a picture that cannot be duplicated by any painter or any artist. It is a natural, cultural wonder. We're very proud of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse and so very happy and so very tickled that it represents this county. It's one of the 3 most recognized maritime entities in the United States. The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse is mentioned in the same breath as the Statue of Liberty: bring us your poor, your tired, yearning to breathe free. The Golden Gate Bridge spanning San Francisco Bay, and of course the granddaddy of American lighthouses, the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse.
The purpose of the Outer Banks Lighthouse Society is to aid in the preservation of the lighthouses and maritime history of North Carolina, and to work with the National Park Service and other agencies, both federal government and nonprofit groups, to achieve the safekeeping of the buildings, the artifacts, and the records of the United States Lighthouse Establishment, which became the Lighthouse Board, the Bureau of Lighthouses in the United States Lighthouse Service. Our mission is to preserve and educate. We were founded in 1994, but I'd like to go back in time to 1991 when our founders, Cheryl Shelton Roberts, an educator and author, and her newlywed husband, Bruce Roberts, a noted photographer and author, visited Body Island Lighthouse from their home in Virginia for a photo shoot. They were very disappointed in the condition of the tower, which had had no restorative work since it was built in 1872. They then went to Cape Hatteras Lighthouse and found that tower also in a state of disrepair. Their growing concern over these towers, especially Body Island Lighthouse, found them moving to North Carolina soon after their visit. They built a gift shop in Nags Head where they talked to customers every day about their growing concern of Body Island Lighthouse, and garnered enough interest to form a nonprofit organization, the Outer Banks Lighthouse Society. Things were going well, membership was growing to get support to bring attention to Body Island Lighthouse. But there was tremendous concern over Cape Hatteras Lighthouse due to the issue of threatening erosion, which was made even worse by strong storms that were coming more frequently. Our members wrote letters advocating for the relocation of the lighthouse. We attended public meetings, started a website, and worked with the National Park Service and gained their trust. Our membership grew to more than 1,000 members from over the United States. Then another project presented itself when the United States Coast Guard declared Currituck Beach Lighthouse surplus property. Again, we became involved in a letter-writing campaign asking the Coast Guard to transfer the tower to the Outer Banks conservationists. The local nonprofit had restored the lighthouse in the grounds and the keeper's quarters and cared for the property since the 1980s and proved they were very capable. And then another campaign urging the United States Coast Guard to transfer Body Island Lighthouse and the rare irreplaceable first order Fresnel Lens to the National Park Service. All the while, the town of Plymouth was seeking our help to get blueprints to the first Roanoke River Lighthouse so that they could build a replica on their waterfront in their town, and also would like to have our help in finding a replica lens for the little lighthouse. The Old Baldy Foundation was asking our help in finding pieces to the Cape Fear Lighthouse lens, and the Cape Lookout Lighthouse needed funds to paint the tower, and also they needed help in getting their original lens back to the lighthouse. So all the time that our humble Lighthouse Society was seeking funds to restore Body Island Lighthouse, we were looking after all the lighthouses in North Carolina. We proudly advocate for all of them. So in 2013, funds did come through for the restoration of Body Island Lighthouse, which has become somewhat of a lighthouse mecca throughout North Carolina. We created a grant to get children to visit our lighthouses. They're the keepers of the future, and we need to keep our lighthouse history and the stories of the families and their keepers alive, else they'll be forgotten. We've hosted homecomings for the keepers' descendants at Body Island Lighthouse and Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, and also have published an oral history for both of these families and the lighthouse families at both of these towers. We publish an award-winning newsletter, which is history of our lighthouses in the maritime history, and also a brochure, which is placed in visitor centers all across the state. We hear it's one of the most popular ones. We have distributed literally hundreds of thousands of these beautiful and informative brochures to those wishing to visit our magnificent light stations. So we bring people from everywhere to the coast of North Carolina to visit our lighthouses. People of all ages are drawn to lighthouses. They call to us not just across water, but across time. They are the markers of history, of navigation, and of our dreams. Visit them. They belong to you. I'm a lighthouse on North Carolina shore. I've stood strong to guard your coast, 100 years and more. Once the waves crashed at my feet, with each storm they did rise. Now the spirals on my body won't fade into the tide. My father stood before me here, though not as strong as I. He witnessed many wrecks at Diamond Shoals, and so have I. He saw the ironclad monuments Monitor and Spanish galleons in his day. And he was fired upon by both the blue and the gray. His body weakened with the war. It was clear that he was worn. So I was built in 1869, strong to take the storms. I am the tallest in the land. I tower above them all. I warn the sailors of the graveyard and guide them through the squalls. Watch the German warships take our tankers down. In 21, I watched the ghost ship as she ran aground. My beacon prisms were polished and cleaned with loving hands. Secrets I could tell you would warm the heart of any man. I am a lighthouse on North Carolina shore. I've stood strong to guard your coast 100 years and more. Once the waves crashed at my feet, with each storm they did rise. Now the spirals on my body, oh the spirals on my body, oh the spirals on my body won't fade into the tide.